I now call Alec Crowley to be followed by Kenneth Gibson.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I would also want to thank and congratulate Cameron Buchanan for securing this members' debate today on what is a really important issue to people's everyday lives. It cannot be stressed enough the impact of living in a housing estate that is continually littered up or is strewn with people dogfouling, where people won't clean up at the back of their dog. I would have to say that I always make the assumption that the majority of people are responsible and the majority of people are caring and would not litter up their streets or their public parks and would not just simply walk away and would clean up at the back of their dogs. So it's a minority that tends to cause the major problem. But a problem is, because if you're living in a housing estate, for example, and it's fully litter, then it impacts on the very environment in which you live in, which can impact on the health and well-being of that environment and the residents that live in it. And that's how important this subject is. And it is disappointing, therefore, that there is a national strategy that's in place that doesn't seem to be working. And perhaps we need to be actually asking the question, if it's not working, and the Minister can perhaps pick that up, if the national strategy is not working, what is it that we can do about that? I would say, as a former council leader, where you're faced with making cuts in budgets and you have the choice between the grass verges that Cameron Buchanan mentioned being cut 4 times a year or once a year, or cutting into school budgets, then I'm afraid the grass verges is going to come first every time. And the reality of that, as we've seen in the summer, where you see the grass verges getting cut perhaps once, is that because they have not been maintained and the grass is so long, people have a tendency just to throw rubbish into the long grass, and when that's cut, it's a nightmare. So that in itself is difficult. We've also seen a reduction in the amount of wardens, for example, that are in place, because again, if your choice is cut wardens or cut education to your children, then I'm afraid the wardens will come first. And it's important that the local authorities recognise the importance of this, but if they're under pressure and their budgets are under pressure, then I'm afraid often that will be what goes first. My experience has been in Fife is that where we've had problems with dogfouling, and I did street surgeries throughout my constituency throughout the summer, and dogfouling came up as an issue in many parts of the constituency, that where the council have been very proactive, where they've put signs up, where they've put phone numbers up to report people, and where they clearly are willing to act and fine people who won't clean up at the back of their dogs, then something is done about it, and you can see improvements taking place. So actually enforcement is important, and I think we need to recognise that if we're going to tackle the problem. But also it is true that in terms of education, as both Chick Brodie and Cameron Buchanan have said, education is also really important. An example I would quote is, if you look at the recycling rates, Fife, I'm pleased to say, has, I think, the highest recycling rates in Scotland. And part of that came around because there was a big push through the schools on the eco-schools, and recycling was part of that. And if you like, it was the education of the children that was basically pushing constantly with their parents, with their grandparents within the community to actually recycle, that I think had a big impact on us achieving the type of recycling that we're very proud of in Fife. So education is important, but I do come back to, I remember visiting a school, I think it was last year, and the pupils had been across in Germany, and I was asking them how they'd got on there, and they stressed to me that one of the first things that when they got off the bus in Germany, their guide said to them is, whatever you do, do not drop any litter, because it is simply not tolerated in this country. And therefore, perhaps we need to get to that point where in every community it's simply not tolerated here. I think I'm out of time, Presiding Officer, but again I would say to Cameron Buchanan, congratulations for bringing this debate here. Hopefully it just doesn't stop today, but we actually say what's working, what's not working, because this is a very serious issue for people and for communities across Scotland.
Many thanks.